Hello. Hi. Hello, honeys. Welcome in. Just checking to make sure everything is working indeed. So, not a lot of housekeeping. We are going to dive right into it. When we last left off, Matthias and the good folk of Redwall were at last hot on the trail of Martin's legendary sword, stolen from its hiding place on the Weatherwain by the barbaric sparrows. It seems we're going to need a clever plan. We will be continuing with, let me see, Chapter 12 of Book 2. Chapter 12. Let me turn this down, actually, on my end. There we go. Chapter 12. Sitting comfortably, propped up on pillows, Cluny sipped a beaker of barley wine as he listened to the improbable tale spun by Seela and Fangburn. They both fidgeted nervously during the course of their deceitful narrative, trying desperately not to contradict one another, while at the same time avoiding the cold, impassive eye of the warlord. It was like this, Chief, Fangburn stammered. Me and old Redtooth were keeping our eyes on the fox here, when suddenly Redtooth hears a noise in the woods, so off he goes to investigate. Where was the noise coming from? Snapped Cluny. The deceivers spoke together. North, said Seela. West, said Fangburn simultaneously. It was sort of northwest, Seela gulped, realizing how foolish she sounded. Knowing that Cluny was smarter than either of them, she wished she didn't have this big dumb rat to corroborate the story. So, Redtooth went off to see what the noise was, Seela faltered. We told him not to go, sir, but he insisted. Cluny watched Seela's legs shaking. Go on. What happened then? He murmured. Fangburn took up the tale again. Well, you see, Chief, he was gone an awful long time. We both called out to him, but there was no answer. So we both went to look for him, said Seela. Cluny toyed with the beaker. His eye bored into the fox. We searched and searched, sir, Seela mumbled. But all we could find was this big stretch of marshland and bog, which poor old Redtooth had wandered into and been sucked down never to be seen again, Cluny supplemented. Seela kept wishing the floor would open up and swallow her. Fangburn sobbed brokenly. Our poor friend Redtooth, gone forever. Yes, our poor friend Redtooth, Cluny agreed sympathetically. Suddenly his voice hardened as he shot a question at Fangburn. You, how did your face get knocked about, and where did you get those long scratches from? Seela jumped in hastily. He walked into a big thorn tree, didn't you, Fangburn? What? Oh, yes. I was dashing about and I didn't see it, Chief. The fox can tell you. She saw it, and if she didn't, well, I already told her, said Fangburn, his voice trailing off miserably. Cluny laughed mirthlessly, his fangs showing yellow and sharp. I'm going to skip this song. I hope you don't mind. There we go. It's a bit too much for me. Where was I? Cluny laughed mirthlessly, his fangs showing yellow and sharp. So, you walked into a big thorn tree and got 2 black eyes, a torn ear, and your whole hide covered in long scratches? Fangburn stared at the floor. He had to swallow twice before he could answer. His voice subdued. That's what happened, Chief. Cluny's tone was laden with sarcasm. And then, I suppose that 3 little pigs with wings flew down and gave you a toffee apple each? Yes. I mean, what was that, Chief? Ouch! Fangburn hopped on one leg as Seela kicked his ankle to silence him. You, fox, Cluny snarled. Where's the special herb you went to search for? Seela was completely nonplussed. Special herb? Cluny hurled the beaker. It bounced off Fangburn's nose, splashing barley wine over them both. Get out! Out of my sight before I have you tortured and roasted, Cluny roared at the unlucky pair. There was an undignified scramble. The door slammed shut behind the conspirators. Cluny lay back and smirked. Everything was going according to plan. He had lost Redtooth, but what the devil? Redtooth had been an ambitious rat. Cluny only admired ambition in one rodent, himself. Far off in Mossflower Wood, the night breezes stirred the treetops gently. The moon rode in a cloudless sky. Its pale light filtered through the waving foliage to create the beautiful but strange effect of a shimmering, swaying carpet on the woodland floor. Asmodeus, Asmodeus. The covering of dead moonlight vegetation on the ground trembled and rustled. What better cover than a light breeze and a hunter's moon? Glittering black eyes searched the night, a forked tongue tasted the air. The small living plants appeared to shudder as the long, scaly body brushed by them, trailing its way along. Asmodeus, Asmodeus. Softly rustling, deceptive as the speckled shadows, the huge adder roamed his domain. Patience and stealth were acquired by long experience. Sometimes the serpent would lie totally inert, awaiting the unsuspecting paw that trod too close. Other times it would raise itself, uncoiling to look into bushes for eggs and birds on the nest. Some nights it was lean hunting. Many creatures sensed the approach of the slithering evil, or scented its dry, musty, death-like odor. The snake had often gone hungry at times like these. But patience and stealth. A lesson soon learned is a meal soon earned. At the foot of the sycamore, the adder stretched itself along the still form of Redtooth. Well, an unexpected bonus. This was another rat that could not scurry off. No expenditure of venom or hypnosis needed. How fortunate. The huge reptile coiled itself languorously around the dead rodent. Asmodeus. Asmodeus. No need of burial parties. Nature and the woodlands took care of their own funeral arrangements. There was but one efficient undertaker. The adder's jaws opened in something resembling the nightmare of a smile. The pathway to eternity was open. Just a bit of a drink here. Excuse me. Chapter 13. Matthias was excused from duties at the gatehouse fortifications. The council had agreed that both he and Methuselah, plus any creature they chose to help them, were to be left to their own devices. The majority of the Redwall mice thought that Matthias was acting a little oddly, but the young mouse knew exactly what he was about. He strolled slowly through the Abbey grounds. Behind him hopped Warbeak on a lead with a collar about her neck. On the sparrow's uninjured leg, Matthias had tied a brick. Not a very big brick, but one large enough to stop the bird getting airborne or trying any sneak attacks upon its captor. Thoroughly disgruntled, the sparrow hopped along like a feathered convict with a ball and chain, forced to follow the young mouse wherever he chose to wander. Excuse me. At first, Warbeak had raved and threatened. Death was too good for Matthias. Warbeak was going to kill him twice, then cut him up and drop him from the top of a high tree for the worms to feed upon. Matthias had merely tugged the lead sharply and quickened his pace. When the savage young sparrow showed signs of good behavior, Matthias would feed her morsels of candied chestnut. The treatment was working. Outside the gatehouse, Matthias rested. He fed the sparrow some more of the candied nut. "There now, you good bird. Well done," he said approvingly. Warbeak scowled fiercely, but she munched the nut readily. Methuselah popped his head out briefly and beckoned. "Come into the study, Matthias. Oh, and bring that little horror, too." In the cluttered study, the old mouse produced a yellowed volume. "Our old friend Sister Germain's translation of the original Redwall Abbey blueprints. I think I found what we were looking for in the main diagram. See." Matthias studied the blueprint carefully. "Brilliant!" he exclaimed. "You've done it again, my friend. A route to the Abbey roof from inside." Methuselah breathed upon his glasses, polishing them on his fur. "Really, it's thanks to Sister Germain for keeping such fastidious records, young mouse. Now, here's where you'll start." An hour later, Matthias left the gatehouse with Warbeak bobbing behind. As they went, the young mouse muttered to himself, "I'll need 5 or 6 strong climbing ropes, some spikes. Oh, a hammer. Must have a good hammer. Now let's see. A good haversack to carry it all, enough food and drink, and some candied chestnuts for you, my friend." Warbeak uttered a stream of curses as she stumbled on the brick. Matthias waited as she picked herself up. Such language for a young sparrow. Constance and Ambrose Spike watched the odd pair pass by. Badger tapped the side of her head with a paw. "Bats in the belfry." "Or sparrows," giggled the hedgehog. Basil Staghare superintended the willing creatures who carried logs and filling to shore up the gatehouse entrance. The hare had brought a touch of military efficiency to bear upon the exercise. He had formed the volunteers into a living chain which constantly passed the defense materials along. Basil brought his good-natured authority into play. You there! Forth from the end, chappie! Liven your ideas up, laddie buck! That's the third time you spilled the basket of soil. Here, let me show you how. The timid mice smiled among themselves. The blustering hare was quite a kindly creature, really, all bark and no bite at all. He shared the tasks with them, working as hard as anyone. No, brother, what's your name? You pass logs along like this. Look, you go and get a bite to eat. Come on, the rest of you beautiful dreamers, stir your stumps, or I'll have your whiskers for bootlaces. The helpers laughed and did the best they could. Now and again there would be barely stifled giggles as they watched the performance of Silent Sam. He stood behind Basil, pantomiming the hare's every movement, puffing up his tiny chest and strutting about importantly. In the Abbey kitchens, Cornflower carefully wrapped Matthias's food in fresh dock leaves. Matthias sidled up, helping himself to a candied chestnut. Cornflower rapped his paw with a wooden ladle. "Those nuts are for that poor little sparrow. Leave them alone, you great glutton," she scolded. Matthias snorted indignantly. "Poor little sparrow, my eye! Listen, miss, if I let that young hussy off her lead for 5 minutes, we'd all be murdered in our beds." The young field mouse helped Matthias with the haversack straps. She tried not to let her concern for him show. "Matthias, I know you won't tell me where you're going, but wherever it is, please take care of yourself." Matthias adjusted the dagger in the black sword belt. He stood framed in the doorway, smiling confidently. "Don't worry, Cornflower. I fully intend to take care of myself, for the safety of Redwall Abbey, and for you." A moment later, he was gone. Halfway along the top dormitory passage, Matthias halted. A step-ladder was set up underneath a wooden loft door in the ceiling. Methuselah came along, leading Warbeak. The sparrow was still wearing the collar, lead, and brick shackle. Matthias looked up to the door. "So, that's where we're going, eh?" The old gatehousekeeper gave him a neatly drawn map. "You find it all marked down there, Matthias. That door leads to a loft. Turn to your right and keep walking until you touch the wall. To your right, you will find a gap in the wall. On the other side of that gap, you will come out about halfway up the wall of Great Hall. It is a ledge between the arches of the sandstone columns. From there, you must climb up to a higher row of ledges alongside the stained glass windows. Scale the rib in the center of the first window to your left. You will find yourself on a wooden ridge that runs along parallel to the curve of the roof. Further along that ridge, there is another wooden loft door. I'm sorry, but I cannot locate it exactly. You must find it yourself. When you do, go through it and you should be directly underneath the top roof attic. From there, you are on your own. From there on, you are on your own. I cannot help you, Matthias." The ancient mouse placed his paws on his young friend's shoulders. His voice trembled as he bade goodbye. "Good fortune go with you, Matthias. I wish that I were young and agile once again so that I could accompany you." Methuselah embraced the young mouse as if he were his own son, and as Matthias ascended the ladder, the old mouse called out final instructions to him. "If that sparrow causes you any trouble, don't hesitate to kick her off into thin air. She'll come down as fast as the brick she's tied to." Warbeak scowled but made no comment. She knew Methuselah spoke the truth. The brick was like an anchor against her leg. Matthias gave the loft door a strong shove upwards and slid it to one side. He covered his eyes and coughed as the dust of ages poured down upon his head. Tugging the sparrow behind him, he climbed into the loft. It was very dark and gloomy. Matthias peered over to his right. Faintly, he could make out a strip of wan, grayish light filtering in. "Him be gap and wall like old worm mouse say about," Warbeak chimed. "Hey, keep a civil tongue in your head, Sparrow. That's my friend you're talking about," gritted Matthias as he strode off to the right, tugging the lead. His concentration broken, he stepped awkwardly upon a joist and tripped heavily into thick dust. Warbeak was upon the young mouse in a flash. The sparrow scratched hard at Matthias's neck and pecked at the back of his head, forcing it down to the floor. Matthias felt the suffocating dust clog his mouth as he struggled to turn his body over. Warbeak pecked and scratched frantically, her target obscured by the bulky haversack. Reaching up behind himself, the mouse felt around until he grasped the sparrow's leg. Giving it a hard pull, he rolled over, plucking out his dagger in the same movement. Matthias lay across Warbeak, pinning her to the floor, the point of his dagger pricking the sparrow's throat. "Listen, Warbeak," Matthias panted. "One more move like that, and it will be your last. Do you hear me?" Both creatures lay still a while, their faces close together, breathing heavily. The sparrow was still defiant. "I get chance. Warbeak killy mouse. Sparrow not give up. You see." Matthias sprang to his feet, tugging the lead viciously. He dragged the sparrow stumbling and tripping to the crack of light. Swinging the bird forwards, Matthias pushed her through the narrow aperture, squeezing through after her with great difficulty. They were on the first ledge, high above Great Hall. Without warning, Matthias shoved Warbeak roughly off the ledge. The startled sparrow shot downwards and stopped with a jerk, only thick neck feathers saving her from strangulation. Matthias held the lead tightly with both paws, straining backwards as the sparrow dangled and fluttered over Great Hall. "Now, you promise to behave yourself, or down you go, my friend," Matthias shouted. With her heart hammering at the surprise attack and her predicament, Warbeak realized that she was completely at the mercy of her captor. Burdened with the brick, she had no chance of flying. As she hung, flapping uselessly, Matthias called down, "Make up your mind. My paws are getting tired. This lead's beginning to slip." A forlorn little voice answered, "Warbeak not want to die. Mouse win. Pull spar up. Be good. Give word." Bracing himself against a stone arch, Matthias pulled the sparrow back to safety. Together, they sat on the ledge sharing a canteen of water, both weary and dusty. Matthias was still wary of his prisoner. "How good is the word of a sparrow?" he asked. Warbeak puffed out her chest. "Sparrow wood always good. Warbeak no say lie. Me swear by my mother's egg, that big swear." Matthias reflected that he had used desperate measures to secure a promise, but with justification. Excuse me. What was I? Justification. He was being uncompromising with himself as well as his captive. Excuse me. Oh. No more could he afford to be the silly little novice that had bumbled about the Abbey before the start of the present troubles. He was maturing, learning the warrior's way. This mission was vital. Redwall depended upon him, just as it had once depended upon Martin the warrior. Warbeak cocked her head quizzically to one side. What Matthias think about? The young mouse repacked the water canteen into his haversack. "Oh, nothing much, Warbeak. Come on, we'd better get on." With an odd feeling, Matthias realized that he and Warbeak were now on first-name terms. Cluny might be making promotions. There were now 3 rat officers on the list of the dead. First, it had been Skullface, killed beneath the wheels of the cart. Next to go was Ragear. There was talk of a serpent. He was never seen again. Now Redtooth, Cluny's first officer, was missing, presumed dead. Most of Cluny's army had an eye to promotion, not only for prestige. There were the extra shares of loot to be considered. Cluny the ferret extolled the virtues of his weasel friend Scrag, who had met his death at the foot of the big elm tree. "Aye, let me tell you, buckos, Scrag, now there was a weasel with a head on his shoulders. Officer material he was, definitely. Do you know, I still can't figure out how a smart boy like that could let himself be killed in a fall from some old tree." Cheese Thief sneered. "Clumsiness, I'd say. I was there and saw it all. Besides, Cluny wouldn't have a weasel officer ordering rats about." "And why not?" challenged the ferret. "I'll wager the chief would promote any creature that showed good sense and a fighting spirit. Well, you look at me now. I'm a fine figure of a ferret. Why, if I was the chief, I'd make a captain just like that." The ferret snapped his claws. I was debating whether or not to actually snap there. Cheese Thief spat upon the ground in contempt of Cluny, knowing there was not much chance of promotion for himself. He was only rated as a minor sort of officer. If it came to a decision, Darkclaw was the natural choice. Fangburn had fallen from favor since the incident with Seela and Redtooth. Nevertheless, the weasels and their brethren the stoats and ferrets argued their case hotly. Why shouldn't others be promoted? What was so superior about rats? Mangefur, Scumnose, and Frogblood consider rats to be the elite of Cluny's herd. Horrid. Darkclaw sided with them while trying to placate the others, attempting to keep a foot in either camp, should it come to a vote. One never knew. Little chance there was of anything democratic being allowed by Cluny the Scourge, who lay on the bed with his eye closed, ignoring the whispered bickering and backbiting around him. He would promote only when he was good and ready. Meanwhile, just let any of his horde dare try to press the issue. Seela and her son skulked in a corner. They felt trapped. Nobody had spoken to them since the demise of Redtooth. It was as if they were being blamed. Suddenly, Cluny called over to Seela. "Hey, Fox, take that brat of yours outside for a bit. Get some fresh air, and remember, no wandering off. Send Darkclaw in here to me, and that Gabby ferret. What's his name? Cluny." The foxes hastened to do as they were told, glad to be out of the oppressive atmosphere of the sick room. Darkclaw and the ferret came marching in, not knowing whether to be confident or apprehensive. You never knew with Cluny. They both saluted. "Chief?" Cluny got out of bed. He paced back and forth, testing his legs. Each day they were a bit stronger. He walked past the pair and spoke without turning to face them. "Who knows anything about tunneling?" Cluny stepped smartly forward. "Ah, the tunnels, Your Honor. You're talking to the very creature." Cluny rested upon his standard. "You?" Who else but myself, sir? The ferret wheedled. And don't I know some grand old animals that could help? Ferrets like me, stoats and weasels, why sure, we're as good as any mole when it comes to the tunneling, so we are. Shoring and banking, sinking shafts and galleries. Cluny banged the standard against the floor. Enough! Where are these others that you mentioned? Cluny cocked a claw over her shoulder. Sure, they're all outside, your worship. Shall I go and fetch them? Go, and don't be all day about it, Cluny replied. Cluny threw a fancy salute and departed. Cluny pulled Darkclaw close to him. He spoke confidentially. Don't you know anything about tunnels, Darkclaw? The rat shook his head unhappily. Cluny put his claw around Darkclaw's shoulder. Well, never mind. I've got other work for you. We can't let ferrets, stoats, and weasels take all the glory, can we? You've always been a good solid rat, Darkclaw. You help me, and I'll see that you get a rich reward when the time comes. Darkclaw nodded obediently. Sometime later, Cluny was deep in conference with Cluny and his squad. It was interrupted by a scuffle and commotion from outside. Cheese Thief strode in, dragging Chicken Hound and prodding Seela ahead of him with a spear. What's going on here? Cluny demanded. Cheese Thief smirked triumphantly. It's these two foxes, Chief. I caught them with their ear against the door. They were listening in. He skillfully tripped Seela and Chicken Hound with a spear butt. They fell in a heap at Cluny's feet, where they lay shivering and protesting their innocence. Not us, sir. We weren't eavesdropping. We were just leaning there for a rest. We're only simple healers. Cluny nodded understandingly. I see. You just wanted to help with the digging. Is that it? Eager to please and panic-stricken, Chicken Hound blurted out, Yes, that's right, sir. Give us a chance and we'll tunnel with the best of them. Seela groaned despairingly as Cluny kicked her son viciously. Who said anything about tunneling, fox? I only mentioned digging. Seela attempted to save the situation. Please, sir, take no notice of the young fool. All he meant was that when you said dig, a whack from the bannerstaff silenced Seela. Cluny's voice was icy with condemnation. Traitors! All that he meant was that you slipped up when you copied my plans for an attack with a battering ram. So now you know that I intend to tunnel into Redwall. Seela licked dry lips. She stared pleadingly at the warlord. There was no mercy in the single eye. You know too much, Vixen. You and your son played a dangerous game. Nobody outsmarts Cluny. I've won, and you have both lost. The foxes clasped their claws. They knelt, whimpering pitifully. Cluny stood over them, enjoying his power as judge. He signaled to Cheese Thief and Darkclaw. Take these miserable turncoats out of my sight. You know what to do. Shrieking and screaming for mercy, the foxes were dragged away. Cluny turned back to the ferrets, weasels, and stoats. Now, about this tunnel. I haven't been drinking as much this stream. Excuse me. Chapter 14. Matthias and Warbeak had made slow progress. The climb up to the arches and stained glass windows was long and arduous. Matthias had relieved the sparrow of her brick hobble, pinioning her wings, make the going easier. At intervals, the young mouse drove spikes into the joints of the stone. He was careful not to look down. It was a terrifyingly impressive distance down to the Abbey floor. Only once did he risk a quick glance, not certain if the dark spot on the ground might be Methuselah watching them. There was real peril negotiating the curve at the top of the arch. Hanging tightly to the spikes he had fixed, Matthias leaned out dangerously. There was nothing but determination and the strength in his paws to stop him from plunging down to a frightening death. Gritting his teeth, he made it to the apex of the arch. He reached over the stone ledge which divided the arch from the stained glass windows above and, taking a firm grip, propelled himself upwards and sideways. His legs landed further along the ledge. With his cheek resting on the stone, he gave one... My voice gave out. He gave one last heave and rolled onto the safety of the ledge. Sitting up, Matthias knotted two ropes together. He lowered them to Warbeak, who was waiting below at the base of the arch. The sparrow looped the rope about herself. As she climbed, she aided Matthias by finding claw holds and making use of the spikes. Leaning back against the stained glass window, they ate lunch. Warbeak gave a twittering laugh. Matthias saw red mouse. You should talk, Warbeak, Matthias replied. Look at yourself. You're blue all over. The bizarre effect was created by sunlight shining through the stained glass. As they ate, Warbeak would dodge her head from side to side, changing color as she did so. Look it! Now me green, blue again, now red like a Matthias mouse. If you don't sit still, you'll be white with fright because you'll fall, Matthias warned. When they were sufficiently recovered to start again, Matthias tried the sandstone center rib of the window. It was carved into a profusion of curlicues and niches, which made the climb considerably easier. Soon they reached the wooden ridge at the bottom of the roof curvature. It was perilously narrow. Together they edged along it, their backs bent unsafely forward with the curve of the ceiling behind. Neither of them was aware of the inquisitive, beaked face of a sparrow who watched them from the corner of a stained glass window. It noted the would-be intruders, then flew off. Matthias drew his dagger. He stuck it into the wooden ceiling to steady himself as they halted to look for the next loft door. I can see it, said Matthias. There, along to your left. You'll have to lead, Warbeak. Gingerly the sparrow slid her claws along the smooth wooden ridge. Suddenly Matthias felt the dagger come free from the wood. He lost his grip and leaned outward, teetering and waving his paws. Warbeak stopped him falling by pulling him back. The dagger went spinning down. It was a considerable time before they heard the faint clatter as it hit the Abbey floor. Gosh, said Matthias in an awed voice. I thought I'd had it then. I was certain I'd fall. Thanks for saving me, Warbeak. Gradually they inched their way along until they arrived beneath the loft door. I lost my place. It was too high and difficult for either of them to reach. Matthias made several attempts before he had to admit defeat. He sat upon the ridge, kicking his legs and feeling quite angry with himself. Failure stared him in the face. A fool, that's what I am. A little fool, climbing all this way to be beaten by an old loft door. The sparrow tapped him with her claw. Why not Matthias cut Warbeak free, then fly with sparrow wings and open the little worm door? Matthias looked blank. Beg pardon? Warbeak explained again. You no listen. Warbeak say, cut wings free, fly up, and open door. Give me your sparrow's word that you won't fly off. Is good. Give sparrow word. Promise, no escape. Swear by your mother's egg. By mother's egg. Warbeak, swear. Matthias undid the twine that pinioned the sparrow's wings, and Warbeak flapped her wings experimentally. Long time no fly. Me good. You see. The young sparrow launched herself off the ridge. She went in a series of zooming circles and performed a few acrobatic turns for her companion's benefit. Matthias grinned. Righto, I'm impressed. Now get back here, you little show-off, and open this door. Warbeak sped back, hovering level with the loft door as she set her claws into the latch. Watch out! Door open. Follow, young mouse. The young mouse backed away as the sparrow released the door. It banged down hard, flapping on its hinges. This time Matthias was aware that there would be another shower of falling dust when the door opened downwards. Wisely, he had edged sufficiently along the ridge to avoid both. Excuse me. Oh, where was I? Sufficiently along the ridge. With Warbeak flying behind him as a backup in case he fell, Matthias used the open door as a ladder. He was soon up through the opening. Though the inside was dull and gloomy, he could see they were in a long, trench-like defile, one side of which was a fairly straight wall, while the other side was a high, curving slope, the reverse side of the arched wooden ceiling. Matthias called Warbeak to him. He undid the collar and lead from the sparrow's neck and packed him away in the haversack. He patted his flying friend. Warbeak, I can no longer keep you collared. You are a free sparrow and a very good friend. The young sparrow blinked her fierce little eyes. Matthias, I must, friend. I no leave. Stay with you. Together they spent several minutes searching the high ceiling above. Warbeak, having the advantage of flight, was first to find the final trapdoor that they had guessed must exist. It was not a hard climb for Matthias, merely an excited and rather undignified scramble up the curving wooden roof back. This time they found that the door opened inwards. It was really heavy. The two companions strained together until it creaked loudly and opened. Matthias scrambled through, followed by Warbeak. They found themselves completely surrounded by sparrows as the door slammed shut behind them. The birds argued and chattered aloud as they sprang upon Matthias, pinning him to the lid of the door with many claws. He was unable to move a single whisker. As quickly as it had started, the noise ceased. The flock of birds parted. Matthias found himself staring straight into the bold, aggressive face of a big, strong-looking male sparrow. The bird glared at him with a crazy light in its bright, mad eyes. Mouseworm, You my prisoner. This court of Spara. Me King Bull Spara. Here we go. Chapter 15. The bodies of Seela and Chickenhound, the two traitor foxes, lay limp in a ditch that ran alongside the road. The rats of Cluny's horde had executed them with spears and tossed them there. Seela lay still, her once bright cunning eyes glazed over in death. But gradually, Chickenhound began to twitch and groan. He was still alive. The fox's entire body was afire with pain. Twice they had stabbed him, once in the back leg, and again, right through the loose skin and fur at the scruff of his neck. Chickenhound had screamed and fallen into the ditch, helped by the feet of the rat executioners. He had immediately blacked out. Seela's carcass landed on top of her son's body in the shallow, muddy water. The rats were satisfied that both foxes were dead, and if they were not, well, who was going to climb down through all of those stinging nettles into the slippery ooze to find out? They hurled clods of earth at the prone forms in the ditch and stood watching them for a time. When flies began to gather on the foxes, the rodents lost interest and wandered off. Chickenhound regained his senses. He lay quite still with Seela's body draped across him. When he was satisfied that the coast was clear, he struggled painfully clear of the grisly carcass that had once been his mother. Old fool. She would never have been in this mess if she'd let a much younger and smarter fox handle things. With a total lack of sorrow for his deceased parent, Chickenhound began figuring out his next move. He would have to lie low in the stinking ditch until darkness fell. Even though he was severely hurt, the irony of the situation caused the young fox a silent snigger. It was he, not his mother, who had outwitted Cluny. Now he would soon be free with the revised plans of the attack upon Redwall Abbey. Surely that would be worth something? As soon as it was dark, Chickenhound made his move. He was only too glad to do so. Flies, wasps, worms, and all manner of crawlies had been thoroughly investigating him all afternoon. Slowly and carefully he rolled about in the thick mud until it formed a poultice, cooling the wounds in his leg and neck, preventing further blood loss. Under the cover of night he wobbled unsteadily to his feet, limping away up the bed of the ditch towards Redwall. The going was painfully slow, but Chickenhound consoled himself with a long journey by boosting his own ego. Maybe a silly bunch of rats could put one over on Seela. She was old and had lost a lot of her guile. Not like me. They hadn't reckoned with a smart, intelligent young fox like I am. I'll show them. Revenge will be mine. They'll see what it's like to be up against an expert in espionage. Hours later, within sight of the Abbey wall, Chickenhound discovered a slope that was not too steep and started to pull himself up out of the ditch. He gasped and cried out in agony as he climbed. Using some creepers and an overhanging bush, the young fox finally made it to the road. Completely exhausted, he lay in the dust. How long he had been dragging his wounded body along the ditch bed, he could not tell. In his present weakened condition, he could not go a step further, but fell into a state halfway between unconsciousness and sleep. Silent Sam was Cornflower's bodyguard on her nightly round of the ramparts. He marched solemnly by her side as she gave out mugs of hot soup to the grateful sentries that watched through the night hours. Ambrose Spike watched hungrily as she poured him a steaming mug of the delicious soup. The hedgehog thanked her profusely, hoping that there might be seconds after the others had been served. What a thoughtful little body you are, Miss Cornflower. I always say, there's nothing like some good homemade vegetable soup to keep the life in my old spines. It's a fair night, but mark you, it gets a bit chill twixt dark and dawn, my dear. While the hedgehog and the mouse were chatting, Silent Sam was never still for a second. He trotted about on the parapet, always sucking his paw, leaping from stone to stone, fighting off imaginary foes with his tiny dagger. One moment. Oh, excuse me. At first, Cornflower thought he was play-acting as usual. The baby squirrel stood on top of the gatehouse threshold. Pointing down to the road with his knife, he beckoned Cornflower and Ambrose with his well-sucked paw to come and see something. The young field mouse wagged her ladle. Put that dagger away and stop your climbing, you little scamp. Silent Sam remained as he was, like a well-trained pointer dog. Perhaps he's trying to tell us something, miss, grunted Ambrose. He waddled over to the parapet and looked down to where Sam pointed. Oh, bless my soul, Miss Cornflower, I do believe that our little soldier here has spotted a hobject. Hobject? There's a creature laying down there, but I'm blowed if it's fish or fowl. There's so much mud and dust plastered on it, whispered the hedgehog. You stay put, missy. I'll go and fetch help. Cornflower and Silent Sam stood looking down from the parapet. Ambrose, aided by Jess Squirrel and Formal, ventured out into the road to investigate. At their back stood a dozen stout mice guarding the gatehouse door under the command of Basil Stag Hare. Steady in the ranks there, said the hare quietly. Keep your eyes peeled for signs of ambush, and no talking now. Chickenhound was lugged inside as rapidly as possible. Unable to contain their curiosity, the defenders questioned the limp, half-awake fox as they carried him across the Abbey grounds. Did your friends the rats do this? I suppose it's sanctuary you want now. Huh. Oh, here we go. Har, where you be about a-layin' in yon road? Chickenhound's head flopped from side to side as she was borne along. He would only say one thing. The abbot. I must see the abbot. Keep that badger away from me or you'll learn nothing. Basil dismissed the rearguard and caught up with Ambrose. I say, you best get that rascal straight to the jolly old abbot. Let him make his statement before he pigs out, don't you know? Chickenhound was hauled into the Abbey building and laid out on a bench. Abbot Mortimer shuffled up in his nightshirt, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He inspected the fox's wounds with a critical, practiced look and spoke dispassionately. Well, Fox, what do you want from us? No doubt Cluny, your master, has sent you here to spy. Chickenhound shook his head in weak denial. Please, I must have some water. Jess Squirrel picked up the water jug but withheld it. Tell the Father Abbot you want what you want, sly one, she rasped sternly. The fox reached out feebly for the water jug. Much to the abbot's dismay, Jess still held it at a distance. Speak first. You'll get water when we get information, she insisted. The sight of an injured animal distressed the abbot, but he decided wisely to leave matters to Jess. The squirrel knew what she was doing. Cluny's horde did this to me, croaked the fox. My mother, Selah. They killed her. I know of Cluny's new plans. Care for me and I will tell you all. Chickenhound fainted clean away. I certainly wouldn't waste good time and medicine on this one, said Jess coldly. Ambrose Spike scratched his stomach speculatively. True, Jess, neither would I. Mayhap he has some vital information. Otherwise, why would he drag himself here in this state? The abbot inspected the fox's neck wound beneath the muddied fur. What Ambrose says makes sense. Would you lift the wretched creature up and carry him to the sickbay, please? Cornflower and Silent Sam watched the fox being carried away. Sam stood in front of her, his dagger drawn to protect them both. She ruffled his pointed ears. It's all right now, Sam, she said gently. The fox cannot hurt us. Thank you for protecting me. The little squirrel sheathed his knife and resumed paw-sucking. Winifred and Abbot Mortimer sat by the bed in the sickbay. They kept up their vigil until Chickenhound regained consciousness. The fox whimpered. He gazed around at the homely little room. Oh, my neck. What is this place? Where am I? He groaned. Winifred pushed the patient gently back on the pillows and held a bowl of water to the cracked, dry lips. Please, drink this and lie still, she ordered. Chickenhound slurped and gulped greedily at the water as the abbot enlightened him. You are in the infirmary at Redwall Abbey. As yet, I do not know the full extent of your injuries. When you have rested, my friends will cleanse you and dress your wounds. Chickenhound could hardly believe his ears. You mean I can stay? But I haven't told you of the new plans yet. The abbot wiped driblets of water from his patient's chin. Listen to me, my son. We would not turn you away from our gates unless you are an enemy that meant us harm. All creatures are cared for at Redwall Abbey, and it is my task to care for the sick and injured. You are my responsibility. Whether or not you choose to give information is a matter that your own heart must deal with. Meanwhile, you will receive our hospitality and sanctuary until you are fully recovered. Chickenhound lay thinking about what the kindly old mouse had said. Suddenly he blurted out, The battering ram is only a decoy. Cluny means to use it as a diversion so that he can tunnel underneath your abbey walls. I don't know exactly where he plans to start digging, but I do know that he will come at you from under the ground. The abbot shook his head reprovingly as Winifred lowered the lamp flame and drew the curtains. Cluny is surely the spawn of darkness. He will stop at nothing, my son. Now I realize this, and I believe what you tell me is true. But why did you crawl all the way to Redwall with this information? Almost at the cost of your life. Chickenhound did his best to look sorrowful and outraged as he lied. Because they killed old Selah, sir. She was my mother. I will not rest until justice is done to her murderers. The abbot patted the young fox's paw. Thank you for entrusting your confidence in us, young one. Close your eyes now and try to get some rest. Excuse me. When the abbot had departed, Chickenhound snuggled his filthy body down against the clean white sheets. He felt a little better already. Well enough to have a quiet snigger. There was no fool like an old fool. This mouse was as stupid as Seela had been. Let the mice fight the rats and the rats fight the mice. What did he care? Redwall must be a veritable treasure house to a clever young fox. Water. Let me check something. In the last 15 minutes, how long is the check? This may be the last chapter for now. Chapter 16. Dunwing was the widowed mother of Warbeak. She was also sister to the mighty King Bullspara. When her daughter was shot down by the arrow, she had given her up as dead. Now that she was back safe and sound, she stroked and scolded her at the same time with relief. When she could get a chirp in edgewise, Warbeak related the strange story to her mother in the rapid Spara dialect. As she was doing this, Matthias lay pinned to the floor by the claws of many fierce Spara warriors. As far as he could tell, the place was one enormous loft. This was the court of King Bullspara, whose wrath seemed about to descend upon him. The sparrows lived higgledy-piggledy here in one great untidy tribe. The roof above met in the shape of an upturned V, thus making the court a long triangular structure. Under the eaves at either edge were countless scruffy-looking nests, all of which appeared to be filled to overflowing with shrieking baby sparrows. At one end, the loft was blocked off by roofing slates and old nesting materials. This was the king's own private chamber. Matthias estimated that it was probably underneath where the weather vane was situated. King Bullspara was not a bird to be trifled with. He noticed the young mouse's evident interest in his surroundings and quickly diverted his attention with a savage kick at the helpless figure. "What a mouseworm want in court of king," he snapped. Matthias, realizing that this was no time for idle chit-chat, promptly shouted it out in a loud, courtly manner. "O king, I come to return one of your brave young warriors." The statement caused an immediate hullabaloo. Bullspara flapped his wings once and quiet descended. He cocked his head to one side, assessing this bold young intruder. "You lie, mouseworm. Not help Spara. Mouse enemy," he shrieked. "King Bullspara say killy enemy. Kill it." Instantly, Matthias found himself fighting for his life. The Spara soldiers piled in on him, jabbering, clawing, and pecking. He managed to get a paw free and struck out left and right, dealing hefty blows to several of the sparrows. Matthias realized that he would soon be overwhelmed as more sparrows pressed in on him, urged on by the mad exhortations of their king. "Kill it! Kill it! Make Mousa dead! Kill it!" As Matthias battled to free his other paw, he felt himself enveloped by two pairs of wings. Warbeak and Dunwing were attempting to shelter him. The mother sparrow was crying out, "No killy! Mouse good! Save my egg, Spara!" The king was not convinced. "Mouse enemy! Gotta make dead!" King Bullspara had no fledglings of his own. Warbeak, who was his favorite niece, called out to her uncle, appealing for mercy. "No! No! King Bull! Not killy Matthias Mouse! Him save Warbeak! Give Spara word to Mouse that you no killy!" The king sprang in among his warriors, scattering them like chaff. They cowered before him as he shouted out a new edict. "Fool worms! Stop! King says no killy Mouse! We have Spara word of my sister's egg check!" The Spara warriors backed off. Matthias picked himself up. Luckily, he had not come to much harm. He dusted his habit off. "Whew! Thank you once again, Warbeak, my friend. I owe you my life." The king issued orders to two Spara warriors. "Battlehawk, Windplume, get a bag. Find out what Mouse carry." Matthias stood firm as the haversack was pulled from his back. The two warriors could not figure out how to open it. They tore at the material with beak and claw until it gave way. The contents scattered upon the floor. Matthias stood respectfully to one side as the king rummaged through his meager possessions. King Bullspara drank some water from the canteen. He spat it out. "No worms, only mouse food," he commented. Warbeak sighed wistfully. She looked longingly on as her uncle found a package of candied chestnuts and ripped it open. Bullspara dubiously sampled one. His face lit up with pleasure. "This good food for Spara King. Not good for mouseworm. We keep." He tucked the candied chestnuts under his wing, then picked up the collar and lead and beckoned to Matthias. "Mouseworm, come here. You lucky king let her live." The young mouse approached the sparrow with trepidation, not wanting to antagonize the moody, dangerous bird. The Spara King buckled the collar tightly about Matthias's neck, scarcely leaving him room to breathe. He attached the lead and laughed aloud. Dutifully, the other sparrows laughed with him. Matthias felt his blood boil. He tried to contain his rising temper. The court of the Sparrow King was no place to have tantrums. Mentally, he promised himself that he would never again use a collar on any living creature. The indignity was unspeakable. Bullsparrow handed the lead to Warbeak. Turning to his subjects, he chuckled insanely and pointed at Matthias. King Bullsparrow, spare Mouse. How you like him for pet, my niece? Mouse, you obey my sister and her egg chick. Funny, huh? All the sparrows laughed loud and long, vying with each other to show the most merriment. The king was a completely unpredictable tyrant. When he made a joke, it was always funny. Warbeak gave the lead a tug and whispered to her friend, Matthias, you see Warbeak and Mother not make laugh. Sorry. The young captain winked at his warder. He was beginning to hatch a plan. Don't worry, my friend. At least I'm alive. Warbeak handed the lead to her mother. This Dunwing. She mother. Good sparrow, not hers mouse. See? Dunwing gave the lead a light pull. She gave Matthias a smile and a nod. He decided that he liked Warbeak's mother. The king issued his orders to Warbeak and Dunwing. You keep Mouseworm on lead. No wander, no stray, give plenty work. Much kick, like this. Bullsparrow raised a kick at Matthias, who dodged nimbly and started to dance and sing with a silly expression on his face. The king stood with a head cocked to one side, amazed at the performance of this strange mouse. Matthias pranced comically about, improvising a song as he went. Up higher than before, I'm near the roof indeed. The king gave me a collar, his sister holds the lead. Round and round he skipped, repeating the verse over and over. Bullsparrow flapped his wings and laughed hysterically. Look, Battlehawk. See, Windplume. Mouseworm be hurtin' head brain. He crazy. Obediently, everybody laughed with the mad monarch. After a while, the sparrows drifted off, some to their nests, other to hunt worms. A chosen few went with the king to play three feathers, a popular sparrow gambling game of which Bullsparrow was very fond. Dunwing and her daughter led the dancing mouse off to their nest at the rear of the court under the farthest eaves. Despite its outwardly untidy appearance, the nest was neat and cozy on the inside. Warbeak had gathered Matthias's gear together. Repacking it into the torn haversack, she returned it to her mouse friend, eyeing him in an apprehensive manner. Matthias be sick in head? She inquired. The young mouse lay back gratefully in Dunwing's nest and smiled reassuringly at them both. Not at all. I'm as sane as you are. However, if I act as if I'm mad, then maybe your king and his warriors will not regard me as a threat. Perhaps they will leave me alone and forget about me. Dunwing looked up from the meal she was preparing. Her eyes were serious. Matthias Mouse do right things. Do right thing, she said. Bullsparrow be wicked, bad temper. Sometimes Dunwing think Bullsparrow mad. Best he thinks you no harm, Mouse. Matthias bowed deferentially to her. Thank you, Dunwing. You are a very brave sparrow. You put yourself and Warbeak in great peril, saving me as you did. Dunwing served them both some food. Thankfully, Matthias noted that she refrained from putting worms and dead insects on his portion. The mother sparrow watched him with soft, intelligent eyes. The mouse was about the same age as her daughter. Matthias saved my Warbeak, she said. We have no sparrow warrior to look after us. Warbeak brave like father was. Now father, he dead. I learned to stand up for us till Warbeak grow into great warrior someday. The hours slipped by as the three conversed. Matthias learned much of the sparrow customs and way of life. Dunwing, being the king's sister, was of royal blood. Her husband had been killed by the previous Her husband had been killed the previous spring in a battle with some starlings. He had saved the life of the king, whereupon Bullsparrow had vowed to care for her and her daughter. But he had instantly forgotten his promises, leaving the pair to fend for themselves. Only in moments of urgency would Dunwing remind him of his vow, knowing that Bullsparrow was a dangerous despot. So normally, Dunwing maintained a diplomatic silence in his presence. Sometimes Bullsparrow would retire to his private chamber. He would remain in there brooding for days, suddenly emerging to fire his warriors with grandiose schemes and wild ideas. No one dared to disobey him, even though half an hour later he had forgotten his previous foolhardy notions and wandered off to hunt worms. Later he would return to find that his plans had not been carried out. In a furious squabble of accusation and recrimination, he would demote officers and promote the most unlikely soldiers from the ranks. Oh, excuse me. Next day he had forgotten it all again and was hatching more crazy plans. Matthias was constantly amazed at the mode of life in the Sparrow court. The sparrows showed no kindness or civility to one another, often fighting savagely among themselves on the slightest pretext. Warriors, and even fledglings, joined in. The injuries they inflicted upon each other were appalling. Spara folk knew nothing of the firemaker's art. By day, the court was illuminated by sunlight that streamed in through the cracked and broken slates and slanted up through the eaves. All food was eaten uncooked, worms and small insects providing the main diet. The Spara did not discriminate between species of insects. All came under the general heading of worm. Thus, a sparrow might make a meal of a butterfly or grasshopper and refer to it as worm feed. Worm was also used to denote an enemy or a coward, or anything alien to the Spara. Fresh flowers and tender shoots of vegetations were used to supplement the worm diet. Also berries and whatever fruit a Spara could carry in flight. Matthias was grateful for this. He abhorred the idea of eating live worms or dead insects. There was no strict routine of chores ever carried out. Apart from parents feeding fledglings, everything was left undone until tomorrow, which meant it was never done. The evidence of this lay all about the court. Dirt, dust, filth, and general chaos prevailed. Matthias gradually found that once he could keep pace with the speedy delivery of Spara language, it was relatively simple. Some of the Spara chattered with such rapidity that Matthias was sure they could not understand themselves. Matthias was not sure whether Warbeak knew of his mission to bring back Martin's sword. Certainly Dunwing did not. The young mouse had had a good look around most of the court, but the sword was not to be seen. Matthias reasoned that it must be in the one place he had not yet explored, the private chamber of the king. He thought long and hard about how he might obtain access to the royal apartment. He did not want to cause trouble for his friends, nor did he want them to suspect what he had come for. And supposing he ever did regain the sword, next problem would be how to take it safely back down to the floor of the Abbey and his own kind. Matthias figured that he had been in his new surroundings for a night and a day. Towards the evening of that day, he was sitting outside the nest, repairing his torn haversack and taking stock of his personal effects. Each time a sparrow passed by, he would grin vacantly and strike up his song. No one bothered to take much heed of him. Warbeak flew in from a lone worm hunt. She stood watching Matthias. "Me hunt worms," she chirped. "Bring dandelions for Matthias. Mouse like eat flowers." Matthias replied in Spara language. "Warbeak good hunter. Mouse like flower. Make good worm food. Where be Dunwing mother?" Warbeak pointed to the king's chamber. Dunwing get bull Spara worm food ready. King have no wife to make food." Matthias acted unconcerned. He pulled at the collar to loosen it. "Collar hurt mouse neck," he grinned. Warbeak shrugged sympathetically. "King says you wear a. No can take off. Me sorry." When Matthias continued sorting through his belongings, he came across an unopened package. What a stroke of luck! It was candied chestnuts. Hastily, he slipped them into the haversack, hiding the nuts from Warbeak. Under normal circumstances, he would gladly have given them to his friend, but this was different. Matthias needed them as bait. They continued gossiping until Dunwing arrived. After a decent interval, the young mouse spoke to her. You go to King's room all lot of time." Dunwing nodded. Me only Spara King Bull let into there," she laughed. "He lazy Spara, not make own worm food." Matthias shared her laughter. "Betcha King not know how to make good worm food. Not know how to make own worm food," he chuckled. "What do you think, Dunwing? Matthias find a gift for King?" The Spara mother looked up sharply. "What mouse mean gift?" Matthias drew close and whispered conspiratorially. "You remember how King Bull like mouse candy nuts? Me find more. You take me. We give nuts to King." Dunwing looked doubtful. "What for mouse want to give nuts to King?" Matthias spread his paws as if stating the obvious. "So King let mouse free. Want to go back to mouse home." Matthias held his breath and watched Dunwing. Finally her face softened. She smiled sympathetically. "All right, Matthias. We try. Not do much harm. But remember, not make Bull Spara bad temper. He kill he sure." With an inward sigh of relief, Matthias swept up the packet of nuts. "Thank you, Spara mother," he said. "Mouse not make trouble for you. Nuts make King happy, you see." With Matthias trailing behind her on his lead, Dunwing tapped on the slates which formed King Bull Spara's wall. An irate voice came from within. "Fly away, Spara. King wanna sleep." Dunwing realized they had chosen a bad moment. Nevertheless, she persisted, this time tapping harder. "Let in, King brother. It's Dunwing and Crazy Mouseworm. Got a gift for great King." A sleepy head poked round the door opening. Bull Spara blinked owlishly at them and yawned in their faces. "Better be portent. Majesty no like to be woked," he grumbled. As they entered the room, Matthias skipped about and sang his ditty. Whipping out the packet, he selected a nut and popped it straight into the open beak of the astonished ruler. "Mouseworm find more candy nuts for big King Spara," Matthias giggled. "Fetch here quick. Maybe Mouse give King all the nuts. King let a mouse go home free." The king munched and chomped greedily on the sweet nut, eyeing the packet covetously. "Huh! Mouseworm give king all the nuts. Majesty have great things on mind. Me think about, let a mouse go free home." Matthias capered about. He went down on one knee, offering the nuts. Bullsparrow snatched the parcel. Hoggishly, he stuffed far more of the nuts into his beak than it could cope with. Closing his eyes in ecstasy, he gobbled furiously. Pieces of nut falling from his beak littered his breast feathers. Matthias's eyes roved about the chamber, searching. It was nothing special as sparrow habitations went. A straw palliasse. Palliasse? Palliasse. Palliasse. Some butterfly wings stuck to the wall by way of decoration. In one corner there was a huge overstuffed old chair. How it got there would forever remain a mystery. Matthias's attention was held by something that protruded out of the back of the chair. It was an old-fashioned looking object made from black leather with lots of silver trimming, identical to the belt he was wearing. The scabbard of Martin's sword. Surely the sword must be somewhere close by. Matthias wished that he could see around the back of the chair to confirm his discovery, but he had to bring himself back to the issue at hand. King Bullsparrow crammed the last candied chestnuts into his beak and chomped with evident enjoyment. Dunwing attempted to press for justice. "King eat gift. Now mouse go free?" The king held out a grasping claw. "More. Mouseworm got more candy nut gift for majesty?" Matthias remained kneeling. He appealed to the gluttonous ruler. "O king, mouse have no got more candy nuts. Give all to great majesty. Now you let mouse go free home," he said hopefully. Bullsparrow pecked nut morsels from his feathers, his eye gleaming craftily. "Ah, now king give sparrow word. I say if mouseworm give more candy nuts, then go free, but must give lot." The king spread his wings wide apart. "This many lot." The young mouse bowed his head. "But majesty, me got no more nut." Unexpectedly, Bullsparrow's mood changed for the worse. He crumpled the empty dock leaf packet and hurled it into Matthias's face. "Mouseworm, get more! More, you hear?" His eyes shone madly as the feathered hackles rose around his neck. "King not argue with crazy mouseworm. You get gone now, plenty quick, or me killy. Go now, majesty sleep." Sensing that the king had become dangerous, Dunwing did not hesitate. Roughly, she dragged the mouse by the lead from the chamber. Matthias spluttered with uncontrolled rage. "Dunwing, how you let a stupid oaf be king of Sparra?" he choked. The mother sparrow shushed soothingly and dragged Matthias off to the safety of her nest. Warbeak had gone off hunting again. Dunwing sat down and tried to reason with the angry young mouse. "Matthias, not let King Bull hear say him stupid oaf. You'd be dead worm bait much soon." Matthias opened his mouth to protest. The sparrow silenced him with an upraised wing. "All birds know that King Bull mighty fighter. Him save Sparrow tribe many time from enemy. He sometime lazy, sometime bad temper, but not stupid. Bull Sparrow sly like fox, only pretend to be stupid, just like Matthias." Dunwing had guessed that Matthias had gone to the king's chamber for other reasons than to gain his freedom. This was a very wise mother bird. He decided to put all of his cards on the table. "Dunwing, listen. I want to tell you a story," he said. "It is all about the mice who live in the abbey beneath us, and of one mouse in particular called Martin the Warrior." The sparrow listened intently as the young mouse unfolded the story of Redwall Abbey and the part that he was playing in its hour of need. When Matthias had finished his tale, Dunwing saw the truth of it in his open face. She drew close and said quietly, "Matthias, Dunwing knew. First day you come here, I see belt you wear. It all same as thing behind chair in king's room." "But why?" Matthias interjected. Again, Dunwing silenced him. "Young mouse, sit still," she said. "Now me tell you story. Many time ago, before my mother was egg, king named Bloodfeather. He steal sword from North Point. Sword makes Sparra folk proud, brave fighters, strong acheks, much worm food to eat. Sword hang in court of Sparra. Bloodfeather die, you know how. Bullsparrow become king. My husband Greytail tell me this for he die. Bullsparrow wear warrior sword. Case be too heavy. Leave case behind and room back a chair. Carry sword and claw feet. King Bull he much show off. Dig worm with sword. My husband go longer with him. One day they hunt in mossflower trees. Giant worm come, one with poison teeth. All the time say Asmodeus, just like that. Bullsparrow drop big sword. Even he's scared of poison teeth. Giant worm curl round sword handle. Bullsparrow, he order my husband Greytail, get sword back. Greytail try, but worm bite with poison teeth. He hurt bad, but fly back to court with Bullsparrow. They leave sword and mossflower with giant worm. My husband die. Bullsparrow say hurt starling fight. Not true. Greytail tell me all 'fore he die. Warbeak still egg. Not know how father die. Matthias watched sympathetically as Dunwing fought back her tears. Gently, he patted the widowed sparrow. Great I'll be mighty warrior to face Poison Teeth alone. You glad Warbeak be his egg check. Dunwing smiled through her tears. Matthias be good mouse. There followed an embarrassed silence. Matthias spoke half aloud. So, it seems my quest has been in vain. But what of the scabbard? Scabbard means sword case? Dunwing inquired. Matthias nodded. Me tell about sword case, Dunwing said bitterly. King Bullspar be frightened to tell a rest of Spar that he lose sword. He not know Great tell me, but I watch King. Dunwing know. Bullspar still pretend sword in case. That way he stay king. If I tell her, he killing me and Warbeak. This I know. Someday Warbeak, my egg chick, be queen. She have royal blood. Then Sparrow folk be better, be happy. Bullspar rule for now. Lose heart, lose sword. No good crazy bird, Bullspar. That night, as he settled down to sleep in Dunwing's nest, Matthias had a good deal to reflect upon. So, King Bull had lost the sword to a giant worm with poison teeth. Matthias knew the description fitted only one thing: a snake. Poison probably meant it was an adder. He had never seen an adder, nor any other type of snake. At Redwall, he had learned of snakes from the talk of others. They spoke of the adder as if it were a reptile that was half legend, half nightmare. It was said that even the Father Abbot himself would flatly refuse to treat a snake, no matter how bad its condition might be. Luckily, there had never been cause to. Oh, excuse me, I need a drink of water. Ugh. Oh, here we go. Where are we? There had never been reports of an adder in the area of Mossflower. That was why most creatures tended to treat it as a mythical reptile, but wise ones like Constance, the abbot, and old Methuselah assured everyone that the adder was cold, deadly fact. They said that in all the world there was nothing more feared: the strong coils, hypnotic eyes, and poison fangs. Matthias shuddered. It sounded even more fearsome than Cluny the Scourge. How could a mere mouse take the sword from this adder that Dunwing had described? The one that said Osmodius. Matthias tried to put it from his mind. Gradually, sleep overtook him. You come quick, Mouseworm. King want to see you. Rough Claws seized Matthias, dragging him from the nest only half awake. It was the two Sparrow warriors, Battlehawk and Windplume. They lugged Matthias off without further explanation, tugging cruelly on his lead. The last things he saw before he was pulled off into the darkness of the court were the pale, worried faces of Dunwing and Warbeak. He shouted to reassure them, Don't worry, I'll be alright. Take care of yourselves. Battlehawk hit Matthias in the face with a stiff, bony wing. Mouseworm, shut beak or me killy. Not before I see your king, you won't, the mouse retorted. Battlehawk aimed a kick at him, but Windplume deflected it. Leave Mouse alone. You killy him, king killy us. Windplume grinned at Matthias. Mouse cheeky, but brave like Sparrow warrior. King Bullspar had finished napping. Something was disturbing him about the captive mouse. He had been too busy guzzling candy chestnuts to let it bother him, but now that he was wide awake, it hit him like a ton of bricks. The Mouseworm's belt. What had taken Dunwing a single glass to recognize had finally dawned on the king. Matthias's belt was the same as the sword case behind his own chair. A broken piece of mirror reflecting the moonlight was the only illumination in the king's chamber. He dismissed his two warriors to wait outside. The king of the Sparrow folk sat staring at the mouse in silence. Matthias stood his ground bravely, not knowing what to expect. Bullspar stood up. He strutted about in front of Matthias, then around behind him. Matthias felt his belt gripped from behind by strong claws. Gripped from behind by strong claws. The crazed king whispered close in his ear. Where Mouseworm get belt? Matthias swallowed hard. He tried to act casual. Belt? Oh, you mean this belt? Mouse always have belt for many long time. Not know where me get. Thump. Matthias hit the floor as the king shoved him fiercely in the back. Mouse lie. King Bull not worm fool. Where you get? Tell. As he shouted madly, the Sparrow pulled at the belt. Matthias knew he was facing death with the insane ruler in one of his lunatic rages. He must think fast. No got more candy nuts, the young mouse cried. Please, Majesty, give mouse word. No more candy nuts. Me give great king this belt. Then he let a mouse go free home. Matthias's plea had the desired effect upon the mad king. He sat in the big chair, his eyes glinting cunningly. Spara law say king must killy mouse worm, but me good majesty, no killy mouse. Give belt to king. Matthias unbuckled the belt and handed it over. King Bull fondled it, and fastened it on himself as he admired the belt. Strutting in front of the broken mirror, the sparrow spoke in a normal voice. Nice. Good belt. But mouse know of great sword? Instantly, Matthias was on his guard. One wrong word might spell death for Dunwing and Warbeak. He must affect ignorance to allay the king's suspicions. Oh, majesty, that good belt. Make king look fine, like mighty warrior. Not look so good on mouse. Bull Spara appeared flattered. He preened himself, then asked the question again, this time in a coaxing tone. Surely Matthias know of great sword. In spite of his dangerous predicament, Matthias was inwardly amused at the king's use of his name. Slumping to the floor, he sat with his head between his paws, the picture of dejected innocence. Oh, mighty king, mouse not have more candy nuts. Not know about sword thing. Not even have belt now. Me die if not soon go free. Please let a poor mouseworm go home. Matthias' show of pathos seemed to cheer the king. He tucked his wingtips into the belt that he had fooled the mouseworm into giving him. He had eaten all the mouse's nuts too. Feeling no end of a fine bird, he gave a sharp whistle that brought his 2 warriors on the double. Look at this mouseworm, he scoffed. He not happy that I spare him. You take mouse back to my sister Dunwing. Tell her king say, take care of mouseworm. He give me good gifts, candy nut, belt. Maybe mouse find more gift for good majesty who let live. Take way now, must get more sleep. Go. As Matthias was dragged off once more, he pretended to cry out in distress. This caused Bull Spara much amusement. He waved a wing in farewell, calling out to the prisoner, Get a good sleep, mouseworm. Think a way to get more gift for majesty. The 2 warriors and a nearby fledgling, who was half awake, laughed obediently with their king. Matthias thanked his lucky stars that he had once more come out alive. Had he refused to give the belt, he would surely have died. Anyhow, he reflected, it was only a temporary loan, as he planned on stealing the scabbard from Bull Spara. Why not the belt to go with it? And that will be it for tonight. We are about 12 minutes past the hour. Going into chapter 17. Quite a lot left for Matthias to get done, but I'm afraid we'll have to see how things proceed next week. Whew. This one really did a number on my throat. I might take a few days before the next stream. Anyway, I have to wrap up, don't I? Yes. I believe that's all I have to do tonight. I don't think I have any news. Yeah. As always, I have been your host for the evening, Enigma Emerald Evergreen, wishing you a happy night and a happy life. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you next time.